Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so I think I'm ready to finally share my story with you guys, my health story. I shared it on Facebook and Instagram briefly years ago. I mention it often because it's something that just never leaves you. But I want to get a little bit more into detail. So this might be a long video and I'm sorry. But I really just want to get it out there and then from there go on to other things. Trying to get lighting here. I don't have all the fancy stuff yet. I'm sorry. But, so I want to start off from the beginning, I guess. In 2016, I lost my job. I've never lost a job before, and it hit me very hard. It crushed my self-esteem. It took away my confidence, or my fake confidence, as I say now. It did a lot of damage mentally that I didn't think it would. And it did, and it really did. And at this point in 2016, I had already been over drinking. And by that, I mean, at this point, I was already taking water bottles of vodka to work with me, and in the car with me, and to events with me, for a comfort. So this crushing my self-esteem did not help in the drinking department. And I basically started this downward spiral of partying and drinking to the point where my body gave out. And what I mean by that is, for about, I want to say June 2016 is when I lost my job. I want to say by like October, November, I was bad. And I say this because I had told my parents, I've been working since I was 19. I'm gonna stop working until the fall, and when the kids go back to school, I'll start looking for a new job. It should be easy. I got a lot of money saved. I got enough money saved for 2 months, whatever, I'll be fine. And in this time when I found myself drinking more and more and more and more and more, I basically found myself running out of money, because what was happening was I wasn't working, and all the money that I had saved was going to alcohol. And it was going to alcohol 2 times a day, 3 times a day, sometimes more, just depended on how much I had stashed. And by the beginning of 2017, the beginning of the new year, I was in such a dark hole, a dark, heavy hole, that all I could do was keep drinking. There was no other outlet at that time for me. I felt very alone. I felt like I did not have anybody. I knew that my drinking was getting out of control, but how do you tell people? Which is a problem with a lot of addicts, is who do you tell and how do you tell? And the reason is because, at least for me, I can speak for myself, I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to be the disappointment in the family. And I was very scared of what rehab would look like, scared of what the doctor would look like. wasn't sure how to maneuver it. So I just kept drinking and drinking and drinking. And 1 bottle a day became 2 bottles a day. Then 2 bottles a day wasn't working, so it became 3 bottles a day. And then 3 bottles a day wasn't working, and it became 4. And I spiraled into this cycle of not being able to stop myself. And the also other issue with becoming addicted. Now, mind you, I was not an addict in the sense of, oh, I just want to keep doing this. It was more of, I was scared to stop, because anytime I would try to stop, my anxiety would be so bad that I thought I was gonna die, which is the problem with a lot of addicts. A lot of addicts are scared of the withdrawal, because the withdrawal is very scary, and you could definitely die because you're feeding your body these chemicals, these substances for so long that you basically, if you just stop, you basically shock your body, and your body doesn't know how to handle it. And for me, even just an hour of not drinking at this point in 2017, about February, March, I could not stop because my body became so dependent. And not dependent like, oh, I need to have it to have a good time. I literally needed to have it so that I would not start convulsively shaking. Also at this point, I started from being able to leave my house to go to my neighbors next door to now I could not leave my house. I physically could not leave my house. I was gaining a lot of weight at this point, because now I'm going on heavy binge drinking for months and months and months at this point, and not working out and not eating properly and not sleeping. So my body reacted the way it's supposed to. And it was just, I was just gaining. The more weight I would gain, the more depressed I found myself. The more depressed I got, the more I drank. The more I drank, the more weight I would gain. And it became this vicious cycle to the point where I was not comfortable leaving my house. I didn't like the way I look. I didn't like the way I felt. At this point, my anxiety was so bad. I was ripping clumps of my hair out of my head. I mean, handful, chunks, every night, just pulling and pulling and pulling. And I was broken out all over here, pimples from here to here, just covered from all the sugar that's in alcohol. My eyes were bloodshot because I couldn't sleep. I would find myself up sometimes for 24 hours with just like a nap here, you know, an hour nap I would pass out, or a half hour I would pass out, or, you know, another hour I would pass out, but never a good night's sleep. It was always very broken up because I would find myself waking up from these pass outs. I'd find myself waking up to, I need a drink. And it could have been 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it was 5, 6, 7 in the morning. I would just wake up and just start chugging vodka straight. So I wasn't able to leave my house. And I actually got to the point where I was so embarrassed that around March, the month of March, I didn't even leave my bedroom. Like at all. If people in my parents' house were up and awake, I was in my room. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to look at anybody. I didn't want anybody to look at me. I stayed in my room. I was like a vampire. I would come out at night to grab a couple bottles of water because I knew I was drinking so much that I'm dehydrating. I have to drink water. I'd go grab 2 or 3 waters to last me through the day for the next day. I'd try to grab a snack or something that I could eat, and I would head back upstairs into my room. And this would be, like I said, middle of the night. Everyone's sleeping, so I didn't have to deal with anybody. And that was the cycle of my life for a good 2-3 weeks straight, where I didn't leave my room. It was constant just sneaking out and then coming back in. At this point, my parents were very, very concerned. They had been concerned for a while now. As an adult, how do you talk to your adult child? I mean, I was 30 years old. How do you tell your 30-year-old, like, don't drink, like, or, you know, it was a very difficult situation because, and I say this now to a lot of people, the problem with being addicted to alcohol or being an alcoholic is that alcohol is technically considered socially acceptable, where you're not going to just go to a bar and see someone literally sitting at the bar sniffing a line of coke or shooting up some heroin. It's different. Someone sees you drinking, they're like, oh, you know, happy hour, having a beer. It's so normal. It's so normalized that it's never thought of as, like, you know, something extra crazy like hardcore, you know, drugs are. So, you know, my parents had some concerns, but it was hard. It was hard to get me to do anything. And it was because I was in this hole of depression that truthfully scared me. And I can honestly say I avoided mirrors because at this point I was 70, 80, 90 pounds heavier than I am now. And I was disgusted with myself. So I would avoid mirrors at all costs. When I did look in the mirror, I can truly say I had no idea who that girl was. I looked, and I can't even explain to you what I saw. I saw a creature, almost like a monster. I could not see the Lucia with the bright eyes that I always had been. It was a very, very different person in the mirror, and it scared the crap out of me. When you look in the mirror and have no idea who's looking back at you, it's scary. It's very scary. And I was so terrified to say anything that I kept this so secretive for so long, because the over drinking started many years prior to 2017. Not to the level where I can't function. You know, I was able to still function in society and have a job and do go to the gym and do all the things. But I drank everywhere, all the time, to cope with this anxiety. And I told my mom, I need medication. Like, something is not right. Like, I need to have medication for this anxiety, because if you get me medication, I will stop drinking. You obviously, as most people know, prescription drugs and alcohol, not a good combination. So I said, I'll stop drinking. Let's get a medication. I remember the day of my doctor's appointment for this medication. I remember being not even in the waiting room, in the exam room, drinking vodka, waiting for the doctor to come in. She prescribed me Prozac. Worst thing ever. By far, again, medication works differently for different people. It did not work for me. It was not a good option for me. At this time, as people know who are on medications for depression and anxiety or any type of mental illness, it does take 2 to 3 weeks to actually get into your system to where your body is used to it and it actually starts working for you. So I kept saying to myself, well, what am I going to do for these 2 weeks? If I can't drink and the medication hasn't kicked in yet, how am I going to control this anxiety? There's no freaking way. How am I going to live? Like, I can't. And so I didn't stop. I was taking the pills and I was heavily drinking. And when I say heavily drinking, you guys, I want you to understand what I mean by heavily drinking. Heavily drinking is not like a bottle of wine. I mean, I was drinking a gallon probably of vodka a day. Easy. Downing. Straight, bottom shelf, by myself, a gallon a day. Easy. Now, at this point in March of 2017, I was getting to the point where my stomach could not handle anything but alcohol. I would try drinking water. I would projectile vomit. I would try eating, projectile vomit. The only thing that would sit into my stomach for a little bit of time was alcohol. And even then got to the point where I would drink to feel the feels and projectile vomit. Then as soon as I was done vomiting, I would drink to feel the feels, and then I would projectile vomit. And this went on all day, every day for at least 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks. And at this point, I became paranoid, where every noise I heard, every car that would come in the driveway, every door that would open, I would just jump and not, what is it? What is it? Oh my God. I'd go to the windows. I'd be like, who's here? I literally felt myself losing my mind. And I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? I gotta keep this up. There's no other way. Until this medicine kicks in, there's no other way. And with becoming paranoid is when the decline really happened. I not only was paranoid, but at this point, I was so severely depressed that I literally thought, I wasn't trying to harm myself, but I literally thought, this is how I'm gonna die. This is it. This is how I'm gonna die. I'm going to die in my bed, chugging vodka, because there's no possible way I can get up from this. There's no way. At this point, I was 2 weeks probably not showered because I couldn't even get up to shower. I was 2-3 weeks of no teeth brushing, because when you're depressed to that extreme, the first thing that goes is hygiene. So the showers were a no-go. The teeth brushing was a no-go. At this point, I had lost so much hair from pulling it out that it was just a matted mess on the top of my head. I also found myself where my body was so destroyed internally, externally too, but internally, to where I couldn't even get out of my bed at this point anymore to even go to the bathroom. So I was peeing in my bed. I would have my girls' time of the month in my bed. I would be puking in my bed, and sheets were not being changed because I locked my parents out of the room. I never left my room. Definitely didn't have the motivation to change sheets. I don't know how much of the number 2 I was doing due to the fact that I just hadn't eaten in weeks at this point because my stomach couldn't hold anything. So, but everything was being done in my bed. And I remember the projectile vomit would just kind of land anywhere in my sheets. I had it on the floor, on the walls, on my dresser, because it came out and just shot everywhere, all over the place. And I couldn't control it. I couldn't control it. Even if I tried to control it, it would end up everywhere. There was just no way around it. And as I laid there in my pee and in my puke, I want to say there was a part of me for a little quick minute that gave up and that just said, okay, Lucia, this is it. You're going to die this way. Take it for what it is. Write a note to my parents, and one of these times you'll pass out and you won't wake up, and that's just what it is. And then I remember Easter Sunday, the day before Easter Sunday, so it was a Saturday. In April, I want to say it was the 16th in 2017. My mother basically said that this is no way. This has been going on long enough. There's no way. You need help. I was falling out of she heard me fall out of my bed numerous times. I had a high queen bed, and she could hear me. At this point, like I said, I was probably 80 pounds heavier. I mean, you could just hear me roll and fall right on the floor. She said, that's it. Your father's going to be home, and we're going to the hospital, and I don't care what you do. I don't care. And at this point, I fought her tooth and nail. I used every curse word in the book that I possibly could. And my dad got home and he said, get dressed. If we're dragging you, we're dragging you. But we're going to the doctor. You are not okay. Something is not right with you. This has been going on. Like, at first it was just, you didn't want to look for a job, and now it's you haven't showered in 2 weeks. Like, something like, no. So he opened the door, my dad, to tell me to come out. And the last thing I physically remember is passing out. Right in his arms, he opened the door, and I just fell. I just fell. I remember my parents saying they brought me into the shower. They thought I had alcohol poisoning, so they were trying to revive me. Cold water, see if I would come to. They thought I just, maybe passed out, And then I remember it was that time of the month for me. So I remember I was dead weight. I remember being dead weight. And again, I was probably like 250 at that point, 260, 50. And I remember them both trying to lift me out of the tub to put clothes on me. And then the last thing I remember for real, last thing I really remember is passing out in my dad's arms. And I remember looking up at him before I passed out and said, "Daddy, I need help." And then I became unresponsive. So from there, my parents called 911. I was rushed to St. Joe's Hospital here in Syracuse, New York. They admitted me directly into ICU. They told my parents I was extremely sick, that it was not just alcohol poisoning, but that I am very, very sick. They admitted me, like I said, into ICU. My mom said at that point I was throwing up black tar-like substances. And the next morning, Easter Sunday, April 2017, my heart stopped and I went into cardiac arrest. And I will give the rest of the details and the hospital stuff and the medical stuff and everything I went through with all that on the next video, because we're already at 26 minutes and I don't want you guys to be here for an hour. But I think piecing it piece by piece would be a little bit easier to follow. But I do know I definitely wanted to get this portion out, the anxiety and depression and addiction portion. Just to give you guys an idea of how bad it was. I want to say my sister and my cousin told me they emptied my bedroom, not my house, not my apartment, not my, like my room of probably 3-4 bags, garbage bags full of empty water bottles, or excuse me, of empty liquor bottles. I had liquor bottles in my closet, under my bed, under my sheets, behind my bed, in my drawers, in my nightstand, behind stuffed animals, under the bed, in coat pocket, in coat jacket pocket. I mean, I had anywhere I could hide a bottle, that's where it went. And at that point, there were so many, it was wherever I could have space. Wherever I found space. Ooh, a little corner? Okay. Ooh, a little corner? Okay. Like literally anywhere I could find a spot that could hold, the gallon or the liter bottles of vodka. 4 or 5 garbage bags of bottles. And that was in the course of probably 7 months, 8 months, maybe 8 months. Yeah, it was really bad. It was really, really bad. Like really bad. So I will continue from my cardiac arrest on in the next video. Right now, like I said, I just wanted to kind of get the anxiety, depression, addiction part down. And we'll continue tomorrow or the day after. Once this part is done, I've stated before, I will probably go to like one video a week, depending on what kind of content I'm doing and how easy it is to kind of do. But the first week of videos is just me sitting down, getting my story out there for whoever needs to hear it, honestly. And I'll link my TikTok and my Instagram in the description box, because down there, because over there I'll have shorts, I'll have short fashion content, short outfit of the days, and before and after pics of me, until I figure out how to do it on these videos and I get a good camera and a whole computer set up. But until then, I can do all of that. There already is a lot of before and afters on my Instagram, so I'll link all that below. But Yeah, that's part one of the journey, if you will. And I hope you guys come back for the part two, which is, like I said, will be the hospital stay and the medical part of everything. So till next time, bye guys.